I never thought I would enjoy lying in a polyclinic. I've been to many polyclinics for various reasons, and they were all pretty awful. In Russia, that's natural. No, some of them were okay, but mostly lazy doctors, bad conditions, bad food and all that. But in a private clinic, it's not bad at all. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Anton, I'm 20 years old, and I'm a perpetually sick student. That's all you need to know about me. Now, back to our topic. Polyclinic Eternal Health recently opened, and from the first days overshadowed all the others with their excellent conditions and wonderful work of doctors. Normal food, everything is sterile, each patient has his own room, the building of the polyclinic is quite large, a small courtyard where you can take a quiet walk, breathe fresh air, briefly speaking, the most real paradise on earth. You can live here and not know any troubles. Too bad I'll be discharged in a few days. I kept thinking how else to get sick, or maybe go to extremes, to break something, but I did not dare. The doctors are trying so hard to make me healthy that any desire to get sick again would be lost. Only a weak body cannot say that. The head doctor once said this: "We'll have some drugs coming soon by the time you're discharged. They're legal, they're tested, they'll help you get your immune system back on track. I'm thrilled to hear that news. And while I wait for my X hour, I'm going to enjoy being here." It's noon. I decided to go out into the yard to freshen up a bit. Since it's Indian summer outside, why not enjoy a little sunbathing before fall finally arrives? I sat down on one of the benches that was right next to the main building. There is more sunshine and beautiful flowers, colorful rows standing near the clinic. I like flowers. I'm a bit of a gardener myself. I got it from my mother. Then I noticed something. Not far from the main building, there was a one-story building that looked like a warehouse. Usually it was a place where technicians went to get their equipment or auxiliary workers. Only this time I noticed two doctors going in there. Grunting and cursing, each was carrying a box tightly sealed with duct tape. I was a little surprised, for what had they forgotten there? Don't boxes of documents go to the archives, unless, of course, they're documents? It all seemed very suspicious to me. Maybe I've seen a lot of horror movies and thrillers about murderous doctors, but still. Something is definitely not clean. I'm an overly curious person, always prying into other people's business, which is why I often have unpleasant mishaps. This moment was no exception. When the doctors brought the boxes in and left, I decided to look through the window unobtrusively. I didn't expect to see anything, especially since it was dark. No matter how hard I looked, I didn't see anything. I was about to return to my favorite bench, and suddenly I heard a knock on the window. I jerked to turn around. Outside the window, I could see someone's bloody hand without a thumb or forefinger. Someone was tapping weakly, trying to draw my attention to themselves. Unbeknownst to me, whoever was there noticed me looking out the window, removed his hand, and half a minute later, a mutilated head appeared. Wisps of hair, a ghastly smile of bared teeth, a strange iron structure exposed jaw. I wanted to scream, but the lump in my throat prevented me. Covering my mouth with my hands, I only stared at the blood-red head with empty eye sockets, greedily breathing with an incomprehensible nose like a proboscis, which made the glass evaporate. The freak began to pee on the window, leaving scarlet marks. "Help!" I quickly ran out of there, pinching myself on the cheek a couple times. I tried to get it into my head that it was a dream, some side effect of a drug hallucination, because Eternal Health dispensed different drugs. As I breathed and calmed down in my room, I decided that it was. It's just a hallucination. I imagined it. Yes, none of this happened. It's just a side effect of the meds, I repeated to myself for about 10 minutes. After a while, it went away. But the bad feeling remained. I tried not to think about it, but I'll have to ask the head doctor about it. I'm a paranoid person. I can get a little paranoid sometimes. So I won't rest until I know the truth of what I saw. By the way, a little about the head doctor. Ruslan Ilyich is truly a good man. He is both the head doctor and the head of the whole polyclinic. He shook hands with the mayor at the opening of the Eternal Health. He himself came from the city, does not specify from what city, but I am not curious about it. After many years of working as a therapist, when he retired, he decided to go into private practice and fulfill his youthful dream of opening his own clinic. The question arises, why here and not in the city? We asked such a question, but not at a personal meeting with Ruslan Ilyich. The most important thing is that they treat, and everything else is not important. I think so too. There is nothing more to add. We can praise him for a long time. A couple of days later, Ruslan Ilyich himself came to see me. I forgot to add that he was my attending physician. In addition to performing procedures, he also came just to see how I was doing and just to talk. He came before lunch, after the procedures, so he had a chance to talk about the incident with the two doctors in the warehouse. Ruslan Ilyich, can I ask you a question? Sure, go ahead. I happened to notice during my walk how two doctors were carrying boxes to the warehouse. Usually, no one from the medical staff goes there. At least I didn't see them during my walks. Oh, you mean Kostya and Victor? They've decided to set up some kind of game club. They're young, a little older than you. They like to play board games. So I let them play there in the warehouse. The clinic will see what the young interns are doing, no matter how hard you try. I can't do anything about the youthful rebellion, so let them play away from the patient's eyes during their breaks. That's how it is. I'm sorry to keep you. It's okay. It's okay. You can ask them to play with you. They're very helpful. They'll take you in. After wishing each other good health, Ruslan Ilyich left for lunch, and I looked out the window with peace of mind. The sun was shining brightly, illuminating everything around me with its pleasant light. Sighing with a full chest, I got up from the bunk and went to the window. I opened the window ajar and enjoyed the light breeze. And how could I think that the warehouse is inhabited by an incomprehensible monster there? In the warehouse? Perhaps I should listen and watch less creepy stuff, then I won't see any weirdos. Well, time for a nap. Nothing better than a day's sleep. I couldn't sleep last night. I slept so well during the day that I didn't get a wink of sleep until 11 at night. But I got the urge for water, so I had to walk to the water cooler for a while. I walked quietly along the corridors and reached the cooler normally. As I drank the water, I heard a very strange sound. It's hard to describe, but it sounded like someone greedily sucking juice out of a small box. I was confused and, of course, I decided to find out what the noise was. After walking a few meters and a couple of turns, I saw a nurse standing outside the nurse's station, slightly hunched over. She was the one making the nasty sound. Probably really was drinking juice or something. But why in the middle of the night? And so noisy? I got a little closer, took a closer look to see what she was up to. My eyesight wasn't very good, but it seemed to me that someone was standing next to her. As I tried to see, I accidentally stepped out of my hiding place, hitting a bench, causing it to make a low rattle. Realizing that I had exposed myself, I only opened my mouth, but the nurse turned around sharply. She was not human. A spiral-shaped mouth and with many small teeth, like the snout of a lamprey or leech. She stared at me intently, her body out of her hands. I shuddered and rushed out of my seat and into my room. The monster followed me, letting out a loud scream, so nasty and grunting that I had to cover my ears. After running the distance from the nurse's station to my room in a minute, I burrowed under the blanket, curled up, hoping it would go away. The creature ran past me, but stopped not far away. Suddenly it was quiet. The creature walked the corridors, huffing and stomping loudly. But it never found me. The next morning, I woke up feeling terrible. I don't know if it was a nightmare or if it was real. No one would say anything, and I didn't want to ask. So it was a dream, only now I began to think it was for a reason. That incident in the warehouse. A monster in the form of a nurse. Coincidence? I had no idea. There was an uneasy feeling inside, as if I'd discovered something scary at the clinic. My thoughts were confused, either to deal with all this or to wait calmly for discharge. I decided that I would start the investigation until I was discharged. I did not look for companions, for fear that they might take me for a madman. I went over to the warehouse a couple more times, but I couldn't find anything. Of course, I could somehow get the key and break in, but I'm too correct even though I'm curious. I could get in under the pretense of helping, which is what I did. I went up to an old maintenance worker, blindly fumbling with her keys. I deigned to help and found the right key at random. I also offered to carry her things to the main building. While they were doing that, I looked around. I couldn't find anything except the boxes they'd brought back then. When I looked closely, I noticed brown stains that looked like blood. Kostya and Victor must be playing a good board game to leave such traces. Didn't find anything else. That leaves us with night duty. It's a risky business, but there's no way out. One night I managed to stay up until midnight. When I got out of the ward, I wandered the corridors, trying to be inconspicuous. I imagined I was some kind of ninja from old Japanese movies. I didn't have to walk long, but there was that creature again near the nurse's station. And not just one. There were 3 of them, all of them chittering among themselves. It resembled the sound of breaking caramels. For a long time they stood, then dispersed in different directions. A boon passed me. I followed one of them, trying not to breathe. A scream came quickly, like someone who, like me recently, had decided to go for a drink, but had fallen victim to the thing. By the nasty sound, I located it. The nurse was hanging over a man. I couldn't see his face, lying belly down on the floor, while the creature greedily sucked all the juices out of him. I noticed the man's hand was drying out, and so the skin was as light as a glove on bone. Someone's footsteps sounded. The nurse looked away from her meal, glancing toward the dark hallway. I, meanwhile, was hiding around the corner, peering out stealthily, able to make out a silhouette in the darkness. This silhouette turned out to be Ruslan Ilyich. He looked seriously at the withered corpse, kicked it lightly, and nodded. "It'll do. You can take it away and call the others. It's time." The creature took the dead man and rushed toward me, making me press myself so hard against the wall I was ready to break through it, but it miraculously didn't see me. Maybe it's blind? It didn't matter now. I had to follow the head doctor. Ruslan Ilyich disappeared into the darkness of the corridor, and once again, in ninja mode, I followed him. The corridors winded for a long time until we came to a large white door, most likely a surgical ward. Ruslan Ilyich turned around, squinting, then dashed out the door. I followed him. The red light and the smell of iron hit my eyes sharply. As I got used to the light, I was horrified. All the walls were red and stained, and scraps of something that looked like meat were lying on almost every corner. The place looked like the craziest representation of hell, as if an artist's evil mind had painted it all. I almost threw up, but held back. With every step I took, there was a squelching sound, which was unpleasant. A slimy, sticky substance of whitish color covered the tiles as well as part of the walls. Walking a little farther, the nauseating odor of iron intensified. Mooing and quiet moans were heard in one of the wards. The mind said, "Don't go in there. It's dangerous there." But I never heeded it even in the face of danger. A multitude of disheveled, bloody bodies were in the ward. Like carcasses, they weighed there. Incomprehensible tubes pumping something into them, thus keeping them alive. This time all the food I had eaten during the day was on the floor. I was disgusted to see them twitching their stumps, barely moving their sewn-up lips. Some of the poor people had eyes like a crushed apple. The screams of those creatures lured me away from such horror. I had to hide among the human carcasses so they wouldn't notice. They passed by quickly, screaming like banshees. Then I walked out of that room and for some reason followed them, even though I kept telling myself to run away. Damn my curiosity. In the very room where surgeries are usually performed, with the doors open, the nurses were frolicking around a pile of corpses. Their movements resembled aborigines at a sacrifice. Ruslan Ilyich stood in the middle of the pile of corpses with his head bowed. Behind his back grew a kind of wings, his whole body transformed into something fat and large. Like a leather sack, the monster that used to be the head doctor sat on the dead, raised its thick, three-toed paws, and let out a wrenching growl like the distorted cries of children. Orange feline eyes glared at each nurse, while the horse-like, elongated, maw-bared, crooked fangs. The wings flapped rapidly, creating strong currents of air that made me fall on my heels, burning myself in front of them. They noticed me at once. In the blink of an eye, the weighty carcass of the main creature was at— "Oh, it's our favorite Anton!" It wasn't Ruslan Ilyich's voice, but a demon's roar. "I'm sorry. You've revealed our doctor's secret. You'll have to stay with us. Forever."